What's
Good
up,
morning. Good
brother?
morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I'm
Good.
doing great, man. It's the first fireside of the year, and for me, anyway, for me, I didn't do one. I missed. I didn't do one last week. I figured everyone was still basking in the holidays, so I didn't show up last week. I didn't come last week. So,
That's good. I didn't show up either.
yeah, yeah. But week before, we were able to do a little something. But I'm glad that we're able to be here today, and hopefully some folks will show up, man. But um, I'm glad to do this recording, and I want to talk about. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining. I want to Happy New Year, Chris. Oh, he went on and went off. Okay. Um, I want to talk about change, man. I want to talk about um, the importance of why change is important to personal development. And Seth, man, I kind of want to work this out, for reasons for the cohort that we're doing.
Right.
But I think we really need to understand why change is important for personal development, and maybe even ask the question as people come on. Maybe even ask the question about what's the biggest change they've ever had to make, and how did it impact their lives. I think that's a pretty good question to, if people jump on today, and if you don't, and if you're hearing this being recorded, if you hear this at a later recording date, ask yourself that question. What's the biggest change you've ever had to make, and what impact did it have on your life? On your life. So, I just want to talk about a few reasons, man, and why it's important to change for personal development. And we could chop this up for a little while, man, just between you and I. Um, I have written down that internal change will help you focus. Internal change will definitely help you focus. Change enables us to become the person that we want to be. Um, and brother, Seth, why do you think so many people are afraid to change or afraid of change? Why have you ever been afraid of it in your life? Hey, Michael, thanks for joining the chat. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining. Hey, we're talking about change, guys. We're talking about change. We're talking about change and why it's important to personal development and personal growth. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. But we're talking about change. Everybody has these, hate to call them resolutions, but everybody has these commitments to change. But we're talking about reasons why change is so important. And our first point was that internal change will help you focus. And I was asking Seth, um, why do you think people are so afraid, or have you been afraid to change or make changes, Seth?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm somebody who's I'm pretty welcoming of change. Like, I feel like in my foundation, I really understand and
Yeah,
believe that change is healthy, and that, if we're not changing, that we're dying. And, even with, um, even in a business setting, I think, if you're not growing, if you're not changing, like, stagnation is not healthy. Stagnation is dying. So I think I've always seen that, but I think it's a lot easier to like say, oh yeah, and like, say amen to that than to actually
yeah,
live it out. So I think I might be more welcoming to change than some people that I know, but I still think that, again, it's easier to talk about it. So once that change actually ends up happening, it's a lot harder. I notice that especially what I struggle with is when I put together a plan and then that plan changes, which happens
yeah,
every single time I put together a plan.
yeah, yeah.
So I
Plans do
think that
change.
that's the hard piece. I'm excited about change because I know that opportunity comes with change and opportunity comes with growth, and that naturally things are going to change. But then once I get into the nitty gritty of it and things actually start changing, then that becomes harder to handle.
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's true. I think a lot of us don't want to admit that. Okay, changing self may be hard, and we're on a podcast like this, or we're on this fireside chat like this, and yeah, let's change. And but in the middle of it, when you have to make the change and to do the change, it's a little bit difficult, but we have to see it through. I want to invite all you guys to the stage that want to come on up. Hey, Ryan, good to see you. Thanks for joining. I said Chris and Michael, thanks for being on. Um, and we're talking about change today. We're talking about change. And if you would care to share a time or a moment where you had to make a big change, and what impact did it have on your life? Seth said something. He said plans are always changing. Um, Plans do change, but the goal should never. How we reach that goal and how we plan to reach it might change, but the goal should never change. I'm a big sports enthusiast. If you listen to this at all, you know I used to coach football for 20 something years. Yeah, there were times we had to change the game plan, but the goal was still the goal. So living an unstoppable life and change is important in personal development. You have to change, and I'm talking about guys, even silly things like uh, change the decor in your house. Just move a couch from one side to just change. Get used to bringing about change in your life, so you're used to change. I was having this conversation with quite a few young people. I'm like, listen, personal growth might mean, and you guys tell me whether you agree with this or not. Um, it might mean you have to change your location. You have to change the your point of view. You have to change what you see every day when you come out of your house. That may make you dream. That may make you reach a little further. If you're looking at the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, it's hard to welcome change. It's hard to welcome change. Isidro, man, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for jumping on. Seth, do me a favor, man. Can you change that fortune cookie for me? I was sitting here talking and I looked at that
I
fortune
got
cookie.
it.
One thing, guys, we're talking about change. We're talking about change. We're talking about change as far as it being important for personal development. Our first point was internal change will help you focus. External change will shape you. So I've had an internal change, then there's an external change. There's some change that we can't control, but external circumstances and changes will often have a dramatic effect on our career, our lives, whatever. And these changes, no matter whether they seem to be good or bad at the time, will teach you something new. That's what change does. It teaches you something new. External change makes you more flexible, more understanding, prepares you for the future. Just as internal change will encourage you to progress, external change will give you an experience to drive and push you forward. Any of you guys want to jump on stage and want to talk about a moment where you've realized you had to change, and it might have been a scary change, a scary moment, but now looking back, you're so glad you made that change. It helped you grow personally. Sidro, what's happening, man? Let me accept the. You got him, Seth? Good.
Ha-
Come on up and give us a good word, brother. How are you?
Doing well. Happy New Year, man.
Same to you, man. Same
Yeah.
to you.
I love this topic of change. Um in the podcast that I host, I talk about my experience growing up in the taco truck. And one of the things, I use this as a metaphor. And I've been working on this episode, so you guys are going to contribute to helping me shape it. So if I ever get famous, I'll put you guys on the credits
Well, thank you.
of the episode. Because and so my father used to have this thing on the side of his by his belt buckle, and I have a photo of it from the 1980s, and it's a coin dispenser, right? And my dad used to use Spanglish words like many people, right? That, you know, when you can't think of a word, you combine two in English and in Spanish, and it comes out. And so we used to call this device a chanchera, a chanchera. Right? It's like a Spanish term, but but it has the word change in it because it would dispense coins to give you change.
Yes.
And I use this as an inspiration. And as a matter of fact, when I moved from San Jose to Denver, I was getting rid of a lot of stuff, and I found the original one that my dad used to use, and it just got me to think about how my father was exemplary. Well, both my parents were. They came from Mexico in the late 70s, and they started their own food truck business. And if you think about it, my dad was in his early 40s, my mom's in mid 30s, and that's a huge change, leaving their family, all their loved ones, right, and traveling up north and making a life there. So when I think about the word change, it's always happening, right? Even the earth itself is always changing, whether it's plate tectonics, right, causing earthquakes, tidal waves.
Yeah.
And if anything, like if you follow the steps of the earth, it's always changing. The weather's changing, climate's changing, and yet here we are as humans. We fear this thing, right? That we fear change because it's, you settle into a certain place that we think it's comfortable, and we don't want to change that. But even if that comfortable zone is causing pain to others or even yourself. So I love to use the metaphor that my dad had this coin dispenser that would dispense change, because change, whether we like it or not, it's happening to us, right? We're getting older. Our bodies are even changing. Our minds could be changing. Yet I always tell people that if what's harder than changing people's minds is changing people's behavior. So when I hear you talk about internal and external, those are the two things that you're talking about. And I just wish more people would embrace it. And I know it's scary for others, because change for others sometimes is a life-threatening thing. But when you come out on that other side, it's just, when you're able to talk about that change and share it with others to hope to inspire, that's the magic. But it works.
Yeah.
Change works because it's happening all the time.
All the time. Thanks for that, man. And thank you for sharing that change, Jetta. I remember that little change machine. I'm aging myself now. I mean, if you went to any carnival, any park, any outdoor vendor, I know exactly that tool that your dad called the change Jetta, man.
Love it.
but thank you for sharing. You're exactly right. I mean, change is difficult, but change also ensures that life stays exciting. Life stays exciting. When we talk about internal, external change, like I said, internal change helps you focus. External change will shape you, but change also ensures that life stays exciting. Hey, Bart, thanks for jumping on, man. Thanks for seeing you. Thanks for checking us out today. But we're talking about change. Change ensures that life stays exciting. No one really wants to live a boring life, right? No matter whether change is internal or external, it's undeniable. Just like Isidro said, that it keeps your career interesting. You are always changing whether you like it or not. So you might as well embrace it. You might as well change for the better. Change means that your experience as a just say you're a project manager. It might mean that it'll differ from day to day, month to month. It'll transform from one year to the next. It seems like just fellas on here today. I'm not sure, but it seems like just fellas on here today. But guys, we ought to be better men this year. We ought to be better men today than we were yesterday. So people say, "Oh, you've changed." You ought to say, "Thank you." Yeah, change ensures that life stays exciting.
I think.
What do you think, Seth?
I think that one of the things I've tried to develop, and that for a while I thought was a weakness, but now I think that it's becoming a strength of mine, is I've become very okay with changing my mind very quickly. That doesn't mean that I'm flippant about changing my mind, but with ideas we're pursuing or ways we're doing things, I think I've become very okay with saying, all right, let's change how we're doing this. You know what? This isn't working as well. Let's change it. And I think part of that comes because for a while, I think there's been seasons in my life where there's been an extreme stubbornness to, what, we're going to do it the way that we said we were going to do it 3 years ago. I had this idea then, I had this plan then. And it's almost like there's times where we grit our teeth and we, clench our fists and we hold to these original plans that we had. And it's like we care more about that original plan happening than anything else, even though it's already out the window. But we're just not embracing it. So it's interesting because I see this juxtaposition of where there's times in my life where I've held to a plan so stubbornly that I've probably missed other opportunities. And so now I feel like it's becoming more comfortable for me to be okay with changing my mind pretty quickly, and being okay with that, even though some people are like, man, you just told me last month you believed this about this topic. And it's like, yeah, I did at that time, but I've found new information, I've learned new things, and now I'm here, and just being okay with that.
Yeah. Do you think that stubbornness is directly connected to our ego that just wants to be right? I want to be
That's a good
right, so
question.
I'm gonna do it this way.
I think I think probably, yeah. I think that is proud. I think that is really connected. And I mean, for me, in the last like year and a half, it's been about a year and a half since business wise, since we just started focusing on podcasting. Before,
Yeah, yeah,
podcasting was one of many things that I did, and I was afraid to focus because my original business plan did not have anything about podcasting in it. My original business plan looked very different than my business does now, but that was 6 years ago. And over those 6 years, I was really afraid to focus. I was afraid to like change our business model because in the back of my mind, I had this emotional attachment to like, I want the first business plan to be the one that makes it. And I wanted to be able to say, like, I had this plan and it worked. And part of that was probably pride out of seeing, like, well, part of it was definitely pride out of, knowing that a lot of people, business plans always change. And so wanting to be the one that was like, well, my business plan didn't have to change. Um, so then, shocker of a story, as soon as I kind of like got over that and was like, you know what, I'm going to like, forget about, learn from, but I'm going to forget about that first model. And I'm going to be okay with letting that die. And we're going to make the best decision for what we have today, which was to focus and niche down on podcasting. And things have been great ever since then.
yeah,
Not without challenges, but I mean, definitely more successful than before. So for me, it was definitely an ego thing where like I wanted to be able to say that first business model was the one that worked.
yeah. And it's funny. Out of all the things that we know, you guys on here are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. We know, and we read a lot. The first plan never works, but ours was going to work, right? Our very first business plan was going to work
Yeah, no.
without adjusting.
Now I tell people that like if you're gonna spend time writing a business plan, and this is true for any part of your life, like if
Yeah,
you're gonna make a plan, then really, I mean, the only purpose of that plan is so that you know the first option that's gonna fail. Like that
yeah,
plan is going to be the first thing that fails, and then
yeah.
you can move on. So yes, go and make a plan. Like spend time, researching, making a plan, but also just be
Right.
okay. Know that like it's going to change.
Yeah. Hey Tina, welcome to the chat. We're talking about change, and always good to see you, Tina. Happy New Year. We're talking about change and how important it is to personal development and personal growth. I want to invite any of you guys to the stage that might want to talk about a time. Maybe you want to talk about the biggest change you ever had to make and how did it impact your life. We're talking about change, and we talked about how external change will shape you. Internal change will help you focus, and we talked about change ensures life stays exciting. And I do want to tap into this also, as I'm hoping you guys want to jump on stage. Change leads to opportunity and experiences.
Yep.
Change leads to opportunities and experiences. And that's what Seth just talked about. Maybe I missed some opportunities because I wasn't willing to change. This is what change leads to. It leads to opportunity and experiences you may never have. Each change in your career, um, it's an invitation to try to experience, take advantage of a new opportunity. Tina, come on up. Good to have you. Happy New Year.
Tina, I think that you are muted.
Yeah, there you
How
go.
about now?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay. Happy New Year.
Happy New
I,
Year.
I wanted to mention that, after I got my master's degree, I had a lot of social anxiety about speaking in front of groups. So I went ahead and booked a bunch of different speaking engagements in the United States and forced myself to do that multiple times. And then subsequently, after I got my PhD, did that for the company for which I worked. And now, this year in July, I'm going to go to London to speak at an ADHD autism conference. And I
Wow.
think I wouldn't have had that opportunity, or I may have, but I may not have taken it if I didn't make that change.
That is huge. And we salute you for that courage. Um, and thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. So was this just something that you said while you were taking your master's? I know I'm afraid of this thing. I know I don't really like doing it. Was this suggested to you by someone else? Or just something you said, you know what, let me just do it myself?
Well, as a clinician, I know the only way to get through certain types of fears is to do it on repeat and
Yeah.
often. So it's another reason I come to the stage so that I also keep talking. I had this ever since I was a kid, doing book reports in front of the class and holding onto the podium and just shaking. And I would have a great report, but I'd be so nervous and fearful that I wasn't doing great or being judged by my peers. So I knew I needed to do that. And as a clinician, I knew how to do that and made that decision for myself.
Well, Tina, I thought that you came to the stage because you liked us, but we're happy to have you here at the stage anyway.
I do like you. I do. I do.
So glad to have you, and thank you for sharing how you faced that fear and decided to make a change. I want to, hey, Andy, welcome to the program. Um, Nothing, you will miss opportunities if you choose not to change. You'll miss experiences. Tina shared, now she's not only speaking in the United States, she's headed over to London. She would never got these opportunities if she just stuck to her guns and said, that's not my strong suit. That's not what I'm going to do. But look at the experience, look at the life experiences that she'll be able to talk about, write about, and share with others because she embraced change. I'm telling you, change is important for personal development. It's important for personal development. It really is. Change also, and why, if anybody else wants to come up and talk about a change they made and what impact it had on their lives. Hey, Chris, welcome, man. Welcome. Good to see Chris talking about change today. Come on up. But change also ensures that bad situations end. You ever think about that?
Huh.
change,
Tell me
ins-
more.
change ensures that bad situation ends. Whether it is incited by you or it occurred organically. All right, say that I'm having some I'm having some problems in my physical. Okay, I'm a little bit overweight. I've got some labored breathing, whatever the case may be. You know what? Let me bring about change. Let me adopt a different lifestyle in this bad situation. All of a sudden, my blood pressure is down. All of a sudden, my sugar is regulated or my diabetes is regulated. All of a sudden, I'm not having those physical problems I once had before the change, and now after the change, that bad situation then. Maybe there's a problem with your finances. Maybe you have a tax problem. Maybe you have some other problem. But when you change, it ensures that you may have to go through, but the key word is through, but it will ensure that that bad situation might change. Well, will change, will stop because you changed. We don't look at change that brings about that will bring bad situations to an end. What do you have? What is negative? What in your life is negative right now that you're having a hard time with right now in your life that you know that if you changed it, that bad situation would end. And it takes courage to change whatever that thing is. I don't know if it's an attitude. I don't. It could be anything, but the bad situation will end when you change. Or maybe you're stuck in what Seth and I talked about before. I'm stuck in my ego. That's just the way I am. And I'm just going to stay right here. Nobody's going to change me. And that never ends for you. What do you
Yeah.
say, Seth?
Well, I was thinking about how you mentioned that change, when we're open to change and when we embrace change, how it opens up opportunities. And, over the last, I would say, especially over the last year to 2 years, of all of the craziness, there's been a lot of issues over the last 2 years in our society. So I don't have to mention too many specific issues for people to get an idea. I have noticed for me that I'm less willing and less excited, and this might be a fault on my end. I probably need to be more loving, but I'm less excited to talk to people that I can tell, and I of course can't tell, but that it seems like they are not open to changing their mind or open to hearing, to actually like listening to other perspectives. So, and that goes on both sides of any issue. There's people that agree with things that I agree with, but I don't really want to talk to them if they're not also open to hearing other perspectives. So I've noticed this for me, like when I sense that people maybe are not willing to embrace change, or even like, accept that maybe there's some ideas that they have or that we have that can change, and that's not a wrong thing. I haven't been as excited to engage in those conversations. And a minute ago, you said that change brings new opportunity. And you know what? Like, if my perspective of not being willing to change is going to dictate what conversations I get to be a part of and what conversations I don't. I mean, Ralph, you and I both know that, where do opportunities start? Opportunities usually start with a conversation. They usually start with other people. And so I think that having this perspective of not being willing to change and not wanting to change, and kind of this stubbornness about, whether it's things we believe or things we're doing where it's just, my way or the highway, I think it's going to close the door to a lot of opportunities that we don't even know they're there. So that was kind of what I was thinking about when you were talking, was just like, I think there's some under the radar social dynamics that happen when we are not open to change, where we're not going to get in the same rooms. We're not going to get to have the same conversations. We're not going to be introduced to the same people. And that's going to lead to less opportunities in our life.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Wendy, how are you? Thanks for joining, Wendy. But Seth, I have to say this, when we're talking about change, guys, we're not talking about, this is what I'm not talking about. I think all of us have a core value system, right? A core value system. When I'm talking about change, and Seth, I believe you're talking about it too. We're not talking about letting someone change your core values. We're talking about not being cut off from hearing their core values or hearing what they believe. Right. Don't let anybody shake your core values, right? And hopefully you have a tribe. You might share the same core values, but our plans and how we go about reaching our goals, we have to be open to changing our plans on how to reach the same goal. Like, I don't want you guys to leave here thinking that you should be wishy-washy or unstable in your own personal value system. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about being unstable in your own personal value system. We're talking about within your tribe. We're talking about within a group like this, to where we're all moving in the same direction. We have the same core values, but our plan, and we're willing to change our plan to reach the same goal.
Yep.
Did that make sense?
I think that's huge to know and to focus on, is that, we're going to have these core values, and there might be some evolution of those, but in general, our core values probably aren't going to change too much over time. They probably shouldn't change too much over time, but how those are expressed in our life, and how those incorporate into, our plans and our beliefs. And, one interesting example, you and I both talked about it before, but like, we're people of faith, and, I go to church, and the church that I've been to, I know, well, my pastor was on your podcast, actually, Aaron Stern.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
One thing they talk about, and that I've always liked that Aaron talks about, is they draw a bullseye, and in the middle of the bullseye, they pretty much, they kind of have these are the core values of our church. Like, these are kind of the non-negotiables that, like, if you go to this church and you don't believe these things, it's going to be hard for you to fit in. And those were like the essential, like, like were kind of the essential, like, faith beliefs. And then he drew another circle, and he said, these are interpretations. You're probably going to have different interpretations than I will. And that's okay. You can still be a part of our community. We might look at things a little bit differently. These are not as important as our core values. And then on the outside, they had preferences. They said, everybody's going to have different preferences. It might be preferences of what prayer looks like, what worship looks like, all those different things. And so they kind of had this like bullseye model where it was like, okay, there's going to be these core values that are connected to our life. And those core values of your life are not going to change. But, your plans, your interpretations, your preferences, all of those things, those are going to be the things that we need to be okay with kind of shifting and changing.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, before we go, anybody else want to jump on stage and talk about a big change that you had to make and how that impacted you? We heard from Isidro today. We've heard from Tina today. Anybody else care to share? Anybody else care to share? Want to come on up and talk about change? I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear, something that you changed that was maybe out of your comfort zone, but it really impacted your life in a good way. All right. But guys, listen. We talked about changing today. We talked about the importance of it when it comes to personal growth. Get in the room with some people that you're normally not in the room with. All right. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to cross-pollinate, if you will. All right. Cross-pollinate. You see that bee that just goes from plant to plant? You can't grow unless you cross-pollinate, So, and when it comes to personal growth, you might have a friend of a different culture. They might do different practices, and hey, go to a dinner, go to a program when they invite you. Just go. Just go. You never know who you're going to get in the room with. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what opportunity it might lead to. But I'm going to tell you what change does do. We talked about it. We talked about internal change will help you focus. External change will shape you. Change ensures that your life stays exciting. Change leads to opportunity and experiences. And change will ensure that bad situations end. Change will ensure, and you could fill in the blank, whatever bad situation you're in. I don't know what bad situation you could be in, but change ensures that bad situation ends. That's all I got for you guys today. What do you say, Seth?
It's good stuff. I'm excited about it. And I want to mention to anybody listening, if you haven't already, go check out Ralph's podcast, Unstoppable with Ralph Graves Jr. And then also, speaking of change, where, I'm kind of helping behind the scenes, but Ralph, tell us a little bit about the six week cohort, 6 week mastermind that you're launching here soon.
I tell you what, we're so excited about it. We're launching at the end of January. It's a 6-week cohort. We're signing up at 20 people. We'd like to get 20 people, no more than 20, because we want to keep it personal. And it's just one of the it's a 6 weeks mastermind group. It's going to help you reach your full potential. We're going on this journey together. And it's going to be packed with all kinds of value. It's weekly Zoom trainings, it's bonus trainings, personalized coaching. There's a whole lot of stuff going on there. We're bringing in some outside people to talk about, training on building online platform. I've talked Seth into helping me do that, to come on in and be part of that cohort and develop that. We're bringing a friend of mine, Eileen Slatko. You probably heard of her here on Fireside. She's been on my podcast too. We're going to bring her in to talking about, achieving financial freedom. But it's 6 weeks of personal development and growth, 6 weeks of personal training. I mean, what a way to start off the year. But not only will you be part of the cohort, you'll be part of this cohort for life.
Yep.
And we're doing some things. So go to my website, ralph@ralphgravesjr.com, and hit the apply. And when you apply, the team will get to you. You might even get a phone call from Seth. And it'll teach you how to sign up and be part of it. If it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody you know. But I would love for you to go on this 6-week journey with me together, and just to help us reach our full potential and being the people that we're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's going to be great. If you or somebody might be interested, just send them to ralphgravesjr.com/apply, or get them in touch with either of us. And this is the first cohort that you're doing, Ralph. And so I'll tell everybody in here, the goal of this first cohort is not for Ralph to make a bunch of money. It's to get results. And so this is really the first cohort where we're going to be going through the new content, going through the coaching, and the sole focus is going to be personal contact with the members, and making sure that over 6 weeks that everybody sees tangible results in their life, so that, you know, in the future we have a better idea of what's working well in this program, so we can release it to more people. But this first cohort, it's going to be special. It's going to be a little bit more intimate. It's really affordable. So anybody that is interested, just head to ralphgravesjr.com/apply, and somebody will get in touch with you.
I would love for my Fireside family to be a part of it. So thank you all for joining in. And Seth, talk about your podcast, where they can listen.
Yeah, we got the Small Business Storytellers releasing episodes twice a week, Tuesdays or Mondays and Thursdays, anywhere you find podcasts. And here on Fireside, we bring a lot of our guests on to kind of do more casual Q&A conversations. So that is where we focus on sharing some of the best and I think most impactful business stories that you've probably never heard of, because there's amazing entrepreneurs all over the place that are doing incredibly impactful work. So search Small Business Storytellers, or head over to my profile to see more of that. But I'm excited to join you next week. Ralph will be right back here.